Hey guys, it's Istebrak, and today I'm going to be talking about a study that I did where the perspective of the camera was a little bit lower than the character. Now, the difficult thing with this type of study is just maintaining the right kind of rotation and making sure that when you are rotating a head that you have it rotated equally throughout all the features. So what you think is enough rotation on the nose might not be enough rotation, so it'll match the amount of rotation that has happened on the eyes or the mouth. And over here, as you can see, I didn't have any planning lines, so that was probably one of my biggest mistakes, not doing planning lines. It was a successful study, in all intents and purposes, I guess, but I would still have loved to, been able to capture with minimal working lines, just by eyeballing, which is something I've been trying to test, exactly the rotation and the reference. And the reference, I've completely deleted it. I have no idea where it is. I tried to find it so I could add it to this video today. I'll try to go back to the live recording, see if I have a snapshot of it, and apply it. If not, then I won't be able to find it. But it definitely had more rotation and had more of a downward effect, so that the camera was way lower than in my version. And you can tell I kind of chickened out of the complete low angle, and I'm going to try another one of these again hopefully very soon, and I won't chicken out so much. And it's daunting because all the features that you think you know how to draw, you can't draw them anymore. You have to learn them all over again. It's as if you started from ground zero. And that means eyes, symmetry in the eyes, especially low angle camera for 3/4 view eyes. Each eye is different. Each eye is a whole new landscape. Measurement is one thing, and then there's capturing the right kind of contrast and managing the lighting. All of that done one day without reference is going to be very, very difficult. So what I have been promoting in my videos, and others, kind of one of my newest campaigns, is trace over diagrams and trend lines, and doing as much planning as possible. In fact, the Patreon assignment for this month was a big deal of it had to do with planning and trend lines. One new thing that I did was that I started adding hair to my paintings, and you'll see that in the coming months. You can see it on my Instagram gallery or my website gallery. And adding hair is a whole new addition, a whole new prop that the canvas now has to make space for. So it's a whole new set of positive space that has to be addressed in its gesture and its size. How much space it's taking, and I try to divert attention away from the top and the north and south pole of the canvas by just not adding any paint anywhere near them, so that the breathing room on all poles of the canvas are equal. And that's why I don't paint the hair at the top, but either side of the head, sorry about the sirens, either side of the head has some hair on it, and I felt like it was time to occupy that space with something. And hair is a backdrop of black, or whatever the value is going to be. I've been really interested in painting just bold black hair and bold brown eyes. So the hair on the sides gives me a backdrop on which to create a beautiful edge with the face. So the face is in front of the hair, meaning I don't have to make the canvas black, but I can still have something that will bring out the contrast. And contrast can be created only with black. You don't have to have white and black. And having that hair on either side also was a nice step. So those were some of the things I was exploring in this painting. Some of them worked as distractions, some of them, especially the rotation and 3/4 view low camera, and some of them worked as some sort of relief with the hair and the edge work that I managed to afford myself despite all the failures everywhere else. So I did a lot of editing on the nose. I had to refocus an entire 30-40 minutes on just the edge of the nose and making sure it read properly. Flipping the canvas is an indispensable resource. It is the I'm not even sure if I said that right. It is the most important thing that you can do, because when you are rotating and you have 2 points of displacement, 2 methods with which you've moved the face away from front view, usual angle that you paint with, which is low camera and 3/4 view, 2 ways you've displaced it, flipping the canvas is the best way to analyze whether or not your brain has done it wrong. Your brain becomes accustomed to one angle for, you give it enough time, it'll become accustomed to it, and it won't notify you if there are things that are looking off. Things will, recent brushstrokes will look off to you if you did them wrong because they're recent. The brain hasn't gotten used to them yet. But imagine, the more hours you put in, the more susceptible you are to error. And that's why we flip our canvas, because each of those hours that adds up allows each brushstroke to marinate, and your brain gets more and more used to what it's seeing and will see issues less frequently. And that's why we say take a break from your canvas. That's why we say step away from your painting and stand far away from it a little bit, zoom out as much as possible, flip your canvas as much as possible. All of this is just ways for you to interrupt what your brain is assuming is now standard. And those were the ways I managed to salvage the failure in the perspective. Those were some of the ways I managed to keep the painting alive. The fundamentals, the technique of flipping, keeping the, prioritizing my edge work. All of those things kept the painting alive and got a good response from it from my viewers. But in my opinion, which is always, I'm always my worst critic, I feel like I chickened out a great deal from the perspective, and I want to try again. If I find the reference, I'll try it again and see if this time with a little bit of trace over diagram, a little bit of trend lines, I might be able to capture exactly what I originally envisioned for the drawing. A lot of stuff was exploratory, a lot of stuff just happened on its own. And as you can see here, I'm kind of still struggling with the nose, trying to figure out what I need in order to make the read happen, not make it too masculine, but still keep it intriguing. But yeah, really what I wanted to do was, the vision that I had was an extremely low camera, which is why I even chose that reference, and all I got back was halfway there, which means that I am halfway courageous, or have half the amount of courage I need in order to pull off what I originally envisioned. That pisses me off, and that should piss you off too if you find that your courage or your caution is inhibiting your creativity. Nothing should inhibit your creativity. If you had a vision originally for something, my original vision for this was very, very milky eyes. Not milky in the pupil, but like altogether the eyes were very invisible and extreme amount of detail in the mouth. I reverted back to my eye detail and my focal points in the eyes, and kind of just depended on the same old stuff. It is a new angle. It's not an angle I usually explore, which was nice. I took on a whole new perspective, but just learn from my mistakes, plan as much as possible. It's not a front view. It's not a simple front view, 3/4 view. All of those simple standard methods. As soon as you tilt the head upward, bam, it's time for some planning lines, because we're talking mathematics, we're talking perspective, we're talking shapes, we're talking z-axis, and we are not mathematical thinkers. The most of us aren't, and we don't pull off perspective with an eyeball, and that's why I failed. I was not realizing that perspective and math and all of that is not my strength. My strength is just capturing likeness, knowing what to do with my brush strokes, and keeping things balanced with edge work and reading the features right. And that's why, again, this painting might have had some success to it, but nonetheless, the original vision had a great deal of perspective I was not able to execute. And you can't really execute all of that level of perspective without measurement anyway, no matter how skilled you are. It's still too many sciences manifesting on too many different features, and the nose was not as rotated as the eyes were, the lips were not rotated, and I keep going back and forth, sometimes correcting the radial shade with a soft brush and ignoring what I really need to fix, which was the nose. Sometimes I just didn't look long enough at my reference and started doing my own thing and had to go back and undo it. Sometimes I was zooming in and working back at the nose again and seeing what I can pull off, and flipping the canvas and finding that the nostril was too visible on the far side. The eye was too low. There were so many mistakes here, and as I kept going, I kept fixing, and this is what I warn about. I warn that when you don't plan, later on, when you were working, you find these mistakes again, but you find them when you have a lot of rendering work that you have to work around. And that is a cautionary tale for you guys. Be careful. This is just a grayscale portrait. It's easy to fix, easy to patch up. But imagine a full-on illustration that has perspective in it. You have to get all those questions out of the way. All the question of how much rotation you need, how much perspective you need, how high, how low the eyes are, whether or not everything is rotated in the equal amount. Math can just help you. Just measurement, is what I mean when I say math. Can go a long way in helping you prevent these issues. Even now, as I'm discussing this and watching my recording, I'm just discovering a whole new set of issues in my workflow. So the painting at the end may have hidden all of my workflow issues. Maybe in a year or a couple months, I'll be able to determine mistakes in my final. But mistakes in my workflow are already very, very visible to me. And again, I'm just still patching up, raising stuff, moving stuff around. And it's because I critique and teach and work with Liquify and work with Transform Tool and work with Lasso that I can correct this. But imagine if this was a traditional piece. It would have been the mistake train wreck that it was originally I originally set it up to be by skipping my measurements. So please don't skip your measurements, even if they look nothing like the vision you have in your mind. They're still worth it. They still mean something. They're still not necessarily the final project, but what the final project will stand on, the framework, the foundation, the solid framework that will keep it looking realistic and intact proportionately, physically. And it's not about creativity in those first. If you're worried about creativity in the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes of your painting, you will have mistakes. Creativity is a blinding loss of focus because you're so concerned with capturing your vision that you forget to have an insurance plan set up for your vision so it doesn't fail, so it doesn't fall apart. So when I say mood boards, or when I say this challenge in the community requires this many thumbnails, this is me that's my insurance policy to make sure that my students are not susceptible to the mistake making my storytelling might rush them into, which is the creativity, the inspiration. So having those mandatory plans, I should have practiced what I preached, but it was just, end of a bad day and I just wanted to start drawing. And it's no excuse, no way. It's not an excuse I accept from my students. I won't accept it from myself. And this is why I'm, kind of just self-critiquing today, because I want to remind myself that planning is absolutely necessary. It's not optional. The painting eventually looked good and everything was intact, but it's just because I critique and I knew how to fix it and I knew where to put values and I knew which decisions were my own and which would succeed and which were the references, and which I could just depend on the reference for. But it still was a patchy process that I wouldn't call graceful in any stretch of the imagination. A lot of my paintings are very graceful in the way I apply them. Some are not so mistake prone. Some I do just go straight into my measurements, and those are the ones that I pride myself with. Those are the ones that I put at the head of my portfolio, and the ones that I know had a dirty origin story of lasso and mistake making. Those are the ones that I'm kind of not so proud of, and I'm very, very, very ready to rip into and reattempt. So I have very, very little time to do paintings and studies nowadays that are full-on pieces. And that's a good thing because it's made me do focused studies like this where I realize my workflow issues and really explore my personality and traits that are, that cause all these mistakes, that lead me to make all these mistakes. Laziness or impatience. I've been dealing with laziness. I think I dealt with it in the entirety of 2016. I don't think I allowed even one day of laziness in 2016, even if it was my workouts or my studies. But impatience is not something I've been very strict with, and I need to be a little bit more strict with my impatience and make sure that despite my desire to jump in, I need to plan, or else I'm just going to be dealing with a ridiculous amount of patchwork later on that'll make the painting process that much more painful. So I'm at the point where I'm not so concerned about the success at the end. I'm concerned about the journey. You at the moment might not be at that level yet. You might not be concerned with the journey. You just care whether or not it looks good eventually. But when you get there, you'll feel a sense of loss of pride. Even though it looks good, you still had to climb a mountain for it, and that shouldn't be the process you go through if you're a professional. If you're a professional, you have a dependable skill set you can call on any time that does not require too much correcting, and that's a skill set that is built on real foundation, and planning is one of the best ways to ensure that your skill set is dependable and something that you can call on anytime. It's not accidental success, and that's the point of today, that this felt like an accidental success. It felt like something that worked out anyway, but I am here to expose that it was one of my probably the most annoying paintings. You might like it. I like it a bit. It was perspective I don't usually try. It was still challenging, but I enjoyed the process. Thank you to everyone who's my patron. Thank you for all the new patrons this month. I hope you guys enjoy this month's reward. Thank you guys. I will see you guys next month. Bye.